Hello, welcome to Wednesday night's Hotline Live, brought to you by NordVPN. Easily, comfortably, the best VPN to secure or for cyber security. Keith, how's it going?
I wonder if it works in our studio. Do you remember the gremlins I told you about last night? Well, somebody's poured water on them overnight, and it's got to the point that I went into the studio to then have to dash back here to do this. So, nothing about my hair on fire here, Dan, but here we go.
And it's poor Henrik's. It's been Henrik, our producer's birthday this week. It's bang out order timing. It's no fair.
Yep, our Swedish producer Henrik, he's having a nightmare.
He turns 70 and he needs to deal with this. I'm looking at his face off camera.
We should have realised, we should have thought this one through. You can't have a 70-year-old Swede in charge of your technical department. There's always going to be issues.
If we cut to black now, that's Henrik just pulling the plug out. So, sorry about Henrik. We've got plenty of comments coming in and lots to talk about as usual tonight. Sean starts by saying, "Any chance of a bit of talk about the football? Sick of hearing about the Spider-Man masks."
Yeah.
I mean, we can talk about football, but I think we kind of still there's a few odds and ends, Keith, regarding to something that we need to touch on.
I'm kind of I feel Sean's pain. It's been a bit of a bruising week, hasn't it, reputationally for Scottish football, for Celtic and Rangers in particular. And it just goes on and on. Today we had the Chief Constable and the Assistant Chief Constable of Police Scotland appearing at Holyrood, answering questions to MSPs about what happened at Ibrox at the weekend. And by the way, what's really interesting is, I think there's an accusation here by the police that the clubs have said nothing. They're absolutely right. The clubs haven't said anything, which is pretty shameful. I said last night they should have been out long before now to take a bit of ownership, maybe reprimand some people. They've said and done nothing, which I don't think is acceptable, really. I mean, they're supposed to be big front-facing organisations. You can't cower away behind your desk on this one. Get out in front of it, own it, and take responsibility and tell us what you've got to do about it. But they've said nothing. But the police as well, they're sitting in there in front of Holyrood saying, "Oh, well, it wasn't anything to do with us." So basically what you've got here, as far as I can see, is Celtic fans blaming the Rangers fans and the cops, the Rangers fans blaming the Celtic fans and the cops blaming the Rangers fans and the Celtic fans, and nobody at any point seems to be man enough here to put the hand up and say, "Do you know what? We should have done better. We should have been better." And, I guess therein lies the problem. If nobody's ever going to take accountability or accept a proportion of the blame, then how do we go about fixing it?
No, exactly.
You just end up in ever-decreasing circles here. We have to be bigger than this. The people that are, in charge of policing the streets have to be bigger than that. The two clubs that pride themselves on being institutions and leading voices in the Scottish game, they have to be bigger and better than this. And ultimately, the absolute morons who came onto the pitch and caused all this at the weekend, they've got to be bigger and better than that. Listen, what's the chances of that happening? It looks, between none and slim right now, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got plenty of comments coming in on this as well. We will talk a little bit later on about the big news from the Premiership this afternoon regarding Stephen Robinson, Keith. He's been given permission to speak to Aberdeen about what has it been, about 10 weeks since Jimmy Tilleen left?
10 weeks. And Lutz Fannensteel's Phileas Fogg World Tour, and they've gone to Paisley. They've gone to Paisley to get a guy who's currently going through his worst run in I don't know how many years it's been. It's unbelievable. It really is unbelievable, and that to me smacks of a club pressing the big red panic button because they're starting to look at the Championship in the eyeballs now.
Yeah.
So instead of sticking to their big ideas, their grand plans, absolute panic merchants. If we can take St Mirren's manager, that'll probably give them a problem. Might be enough to give us a comfort blanket, and they're not thinking any longer term here than till the end of the season. And I have to say as well, as much as I've been a massive admirer of everything that Stephen Robinson's done, at St Mirren, and no wonder. If I was picking a manager from another Scottish club right now, I'd be going to Lanarkshire and Motherwell rather than Paisley. But again, even that, even they could have even said that Jens Bertolascu would have fitted in with the plan, and people would have said, well, right enough, that does make sense. You want foreign, you want Scandinavian, you want front foot, aggressive, new style of football, something contemporary. Well, it just so happens that guy was in the backyard. But they've gone the other way. They've ripped everything up that they ever claimed that they were concentrating on. Emergency plan B. And good luck to Stephen Robson. He really deserves this opportunity because he's been terrific. But it's an odd time to go and get him because he's having his worst time as St Mirren manager right now.
We've got tons of comments coming in on that, which we will get to in our resident transfer guru, Scott Burns. Aberdeen is very much his beat. He'll be on very soon to give us the lowdown on that. But going back to the policing stuff, Keith, we've got a few comments that'll throw your way. Rangers is okay, says the old Bill took no responsibility for anything, played a huge part in what happened on Sunday. Told part of the reason the ticket was £53 was to pay for policing. I should be due a refund. Wilkinson says it's a deflection on part of the police. Smell the Glove says Celtic board always say nothing. Mark says it's cowards in both boardrooms. John says everyone seems to be using it wasn't me defence. Jan as well. Where was the police? How did they manage to create a line in front of the Celtic fans to protect them? Rangers fans shouldn't have gone that far. Look, I don't know anything about policing, obviously, right? But it looked to me, we've talked about it, Keith, but it looked to me that there was a real obvious lack of policing at the weekend. That's
I'll let you in on a secret, Dan.
Go on.
My old man was a detective chief superintendent.
Well,
was often in charge of policing Old Firm matches, big games. Was actually in the middle of the pitch at Hampden Park in 1980 during the riot, taking bodies, collaring people. So I've actually got a fairly kind of decent kind of take on what's required, and I think he'd be mortified with the way that was run at the weekend, or the way it wasn't run. And I also heard the assistant chief constable today saying, well, the next step, everything was under control, and the next step was, and what did I say on last night's show? There was a picture there that the horses, the mounted police officers, and they weren't deployed. Why weren't they deployed? What exactly was it they were waiting for? What exactly was going to be the next step?
Aye.
I mean, it was madness. It was. I just thought the police completely. I don't know if they were being naive, if they underestimated it, if they just don't know what they're doing. But this fixture has been perfectly well policed for years and years. When it was full away allocations, the police went AWOL at the weekend. And they've got a lot of explaining to do. And marking your own homework and saying that you're perfectly satisfied with what you did isn't good enough.
I think it's bizarre that they've taken that line.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Because what does it tell you? It tells you that there's nothing to learn from on our part. That's really unnerving for me. Because if they think that was properly policed, then we've got more trouble ahead. Now, talking of which, Dan, it's my understanding that the SPFL has already been in talks with the police about the next one, the post-split Old Firm game at Celtic Park. As things stand, as I'm led to believe anyway, there has been no attempt to alter the agreement which is already in place for this season in terms of away allocations. So as things stand, Rangers will get the same allocations they had previously, which is about 2,500, I think, for that corner at the away end at Celtic Park. Let me tell you something. The police better up their game because whether it's inside the stadium, around the stadium, during the match, when these people are in situ, they have to be far more mindful and visible than they were at the weekend. They have to do their job. None of that excuses what went on at the weekend, by the way. I come back to that. And I think about, talking about my dad there. See, if I'd jumped on the pitch that age and you'd go home and you'd get your...
Oh, my God. Aye.
you'd get a beating.
You wouldn't have a home.
Well, exactly. So you wonder what's going on that these young kids seem to think there's no consequence for anything anymore. And it doesn't change the fact, as critical as I am of the police, and I'm being critical, it doesn't change the fact that what went on there was loutish, Ned-like behaviour from this, from these people that think they can do what they want when they want to whoever they want, and there's no payback, there's no consequence. That has to change as well. Now, the police also talked about being on the front foot this week and getting out and charting doors and finding people and hunting people down, making arrests, getting banning orders in place. I haven't heard much of that happening. And there's some real high-profile incidents that everybody's seen now on the internet. So where are the police in this one? Where are Celtic? Where are Rangers? It's not good enough.
Do you not think it's peculiar, Keith, that both clubs haven't issued a statement? Like you could understand if one maybe we're going to hold back here, but for them both not to have done it is quite peculiar, I think. I'm not for a second hinting that they've colluded, but
no, listen. I think that I don't think that's the case. I think they're almost waiting. Right, we'll wait. Once they put something out, we'll put something out. I don't think it's coordinated at all. I wish it would be. I wish they'd put out a joint statement.
A joint statement, they should, I know.
Saying that this is completely unacceptable. Neither Celtic Football Club nor Rangers Football Club will tolerate any such repeat of this sort of behaviour. And people will be banned from the stadium Sunday.
Yeah.
Once they're identified. And if they would do that, and maybe there'd be a bit of muscle there if they did join forces and come out jointly to condemn it. But by saying nothing, I don't want to say it's almost like they're tacitly tolerating it, but it almost is.
I get that.
Come out, make your voice heard on this.
Part of the problem as well, and you can see it in our comments, not so much tonight, but in previous nights. Rangers fans think it was Celtic fans think it was Rangers fans. If both clubs come out, put out a joint statement, said, look, anyone on the pitch, you'll be banned. We condemn it in the strongest sense, Rangers and Celtic. That would speak volumes.
And by the way, CCTV, whatever we've got to help the police identify you, we'll be handing that over. We'll be doing everything that we can jointly to work with this police operation. It's Operation Moonglint, to help them identify whoever can be identified, to help arrests get made. But instead of that, they're backing off.
Aye.
It does appear at the first glance as cowardice, sheer cowardice on behalf of the clubs, and it's a complete dereliction of duty and responsibility from the cops. And whatever way you slice it and dice it, Dan, it's bad news for Scottish football.
Yeah.
If there's a problem, get out in front of that problem, address it and deal with it. Cowering away here helps nothing. And unfortunately, that's the position we're in. How many hours have passed since Sunday? We're sitting here now, it's Wednesday night.
Aye.
And Martin O'Neill did an interview with Celtic's own TV channel this afternoon. I think it just came out shortly before we came on air. Yeah. Did you not say, Daniel, 11 minutes long?
Yeah, I just watched it before we come on air there, and I was expecting maybe a cursory mention of. I'm
not. By the way, I am not in any way, shape, or form blaming Martin O'Neill for that.
Oh well, that's part of the reason why I watched it, because I thought if they're letting Martin O'Neill be the mouthpiece again, if he's the one,
it's ridiculous. The amount of fronting up that man's had to do for the football club this year is scandalous, because other people aren't doing their jobs. So to shove him out there, do an in-house TV interview, but quite clearly there was no mention of, nobody was allowed to ask questions of, and I can understand that. If I'm Martin O'Neill, why should I be answering that question? Where's the chief executive? Where's our security guys?
$900,000 a year.
Where's the board? Where's Dermot Desmond?
So
honestly, people already look bad, but the lack of kind of determination to deal with it is making the clubs look worse. At least in the first instance, you can say we've got an unruly element of fans. We accept that. It's maybe a societal problem, whatever it is. We will do what we can to root these people out. We'll help the police. We'll tackle it. but they're not. There's no sign of it. So what does that mean? Does that mean it's okay? Does that mean by saying nothing, you're just keeping your fingers crossed that there's no repeat next time around? Because there is going to be, by the looks of it, unless there's a change, and I don't see it from what I'm told today, it will be the plan will be for the post-split fixture for the 2,500 Rangers fans to be in attendance at Celtic Park. I think they've got to send out messages, guys. Whatever you do, behave. And the same goes to Celtic with the home fans. Behave yourselves.
Absolutely. One man who always behaves himself is our resident transfer guru, the one and only Scott Burns. Burnsy, thanks for coming on the Hotline Live.
Hey, gents, is all right?
How's it going?
It's all right. It's all right.
We've obviously
hiking, Burnsy.
Hiking. I'm actually watching the big cup final tonight. I thought you'd known that was on the go, Keith.
All right, what one's that?
Perfect timing.
Oh man,
we've got Burnsy on to talk about.
And he's obviously having nicked his broadband off the next door neighbour. He's now obviously nicking it off the sports centre.
Marzuno's asking if he was walking the dog. He might be. We never know. Hopefully, we'll get Burnsy back in a minute. But just to finish on what we were saying there, it's good to get back to football. Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested to see what the big cup final is that we're all missing.
Maybe we can catch the second half if we get out quick enough.
Is it shinty or something like that? Is that what they do up there?
Is it shinty, Burnsy? What the cup final? We're on the edge of our seats.
I'm live in I'm in St Andrews, so I'm a bit further south. No, it's a university cup final. I'm watching tonight, so one of the families playing.
Nice. That'll be a challenge.
How are you? You're right.
We've obviously got you on, Burnsy, because big news coming out of the Premiership today. Stephen Robinson has been given permission to speak to Aberdeen just the 10 weeks after Jimmy Tilleen departed.
I think he's obviously been given permission, but I believe the deal's also done, so that'll be announced sooner rather than later that he's the next Aberdeen manager. Yep, 10 weeks, lots of twists, lots of turns. But eventually they've got a manager in place.
And what's your take on this, Burnsy? Because, you know, as I said earlier, Luke Fanning's style been setting off on a world tour. We've seen all sorts of names from all sorts of places, and they've ended up going down the road to Paisley. Does that? My view is that's an absolute panic stations move.
No. I wouldn't say it's panic stations. I would question whether Lutz Papenstiel has got a long-term future at Aberdeen now. That's what I would say.
Right.
Because obviously Lutz led the managerial search. He obviously they wanted Eric Hornland, but circumstances out with all their control. They couldn't get a timeline on when Hornland could take the job, or that Hornland in his current situation wouldn't commit either. So after the Scottish Cup defeat, they held a directors meeting on Sunday night, and at that point there were other directors who had previously been pushing for an immediate appointment. They felt that they couldn't wait any longer for a manager, and the thought of leaving it to the end of the season just wasn't doable for some of them. They felt they needed stability now. The club needed to move forward. The fans needed to know what was happening, and the players needed to know what was going to happen. So from that point of view, from that meeting, Stephen Robinson became the main man. The chief executive, Alan Burrows, was the main driver behind this. He had obviously been courting Robinson since day one, but they'd wanted to go down other routes. But he has now, obviously, when they needed a manager, Alan Burrows has pushed big time. Stephen Robinson's got a very good track record in the Scottish Premiership, and Motherwell and St Mirren. He's got them punched them off their weight. And I think that basically he's got his way on Monday night that they should go for Stephen Robinson. And that's how the wheels have turned in that one. So from that point of view, I don't think the sporting director has got very much say in this appointment. And I said, I think his position becomes very, very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it looked like from the outside, Burnsy, that we all know Alan Burrows, we all know there's a connection there with Stephen Robinson, they've worked together previous. This looks like, this is my point. What was all that about, going here and there and everywhere and MLS and to deliver nothing? Meanwhile, Aberdeen's season has been going down the toilet, And then quite clearly, this is an Alan Burrows appointment. After all this time, this could have been done weeks ago, months ago.
No, I know what you're saying. And from the outside, right, Eric Hornland, when he was interviewed for the job, was willing to take the job. Okay. Then between that and being offered the contract, and it had nothing to do with the contract or the terms, circumstances in his life and with people within his life have changed. So he was unable to take that job. And there are other reasons that basically that he's also got to address that are far more important than football. So he isn't in a position to take that job. So I know Aberdeen would take that kicking for it taking so long, but in an ideal world, if things had gone the right way, Eric Hornland would have been the manager. It would have been sealed, appointed, and he wouldn't have been in before the end of the season, but he would have been in place for the summer. They then started to look at other options. Sandro Schwartz was another one that Taffy Steele had obviously spoken to. He came across for the Celtic game. I think the issue with that one as well was that Sandro Schwartz wasn't keen on taking the job before the end of the season. So it then narrows the
you should have that conversation before he gets in a plane, Bunsey.
Yeah, you'd have thought so.
Yeah, but I'm sure that at that point he was probably open to it. He gets in the plane, but then it's decided for whatever reason that at this stage it's not for him, is it? I suppose when you go into an interview process, you leave everything open and on the table. So from that point of view, with regards to the Hornland one, I know that Aberdeen would take that kick into the time scale, but honestly, if people knew the real story, they would understand the reasons why it's taking so long and the issues of why they couldn't go public on it, you know what I mean? But obviously, since then, they've had to move quite quickly to get a new manager in, and that's why it's fallen at Stephen Robinson.
Yeah, I must admit, I'm disappointed. I thought Hornland sounded like an ideal world as well.
Michael Garrett's never been the same since.
Before we let you get back to your cup final, Burnsy, a lot of comments coming in on this. I'll throw a couple of these at you if it's okay. Bob, who I know is a big Dons man, says Robinson is not wanted at Aberdeen. And Gavaldo also says Dons fans don't want him though. There's a massive issue already. I mean, have you encountered any pushback to the potential appointment?
Certainly, if you look at social media, I know that's not always the biggest gauge for fans, but a lot of it is very, very negative. I mean, I think they made it clear. A lot of Aberdeen fans had made it clear when the manager names were coming out that Stephen Robinson wasn't one they wanted. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, why? Because Stephen Robinson has done really well at St Mirren. He's done well at Motherwell. Three top six places for a team like St Mirren. He got into Europe and he won a major cup final like Aberdeen did. You know what I mean? So what more do they want? I think the issue is that there's some are complaining about Stephen Robinson's playing style. Will he develop players and sell them on? Well, he's not really had that chance at St Mirren. He's been building teams and firefighting all the time with a limited budget. So let's see what he does with a bigger budget, you know what I mean? And the right tools. I mean, he will kick Aberdeen on.
Bunsey, would it not have been an easier sale to the Aberdeen punters if they'd went to Motherwell instead and gone for Jen Bertolascu? I'm pretty positive there would have been a far stronger, happier reaction from the fans if they'd went down that route. And by the way, they could also package that up as well. This guy fits what we were looking for: a young continental coach who plays aggressive front foot football. I think that would have been a really easy sale.
Might have been a right easy sale, but it wasn't an easy sale for Aberdeen. Like, during this process, he was sounded out. You know what I mean? And he was getting the feedback was that it wasn't a job for him as it stands.
Right.
So in fairness, Aberdeen, they asked the question, but it was a non-starter. So yeah, it might have pleased the fans, but if somebody's not interested in the job, then we've got to move on.
100%, Bunsey. I was just wondering if the question had been asked, and quite clearly
it was.
It
was. Yeah.
What a couple of other comments, guys, revolve around the timing. Friend of the show, Kyle Gunn, says, Keith, do you not find it a bit weird, the timing? I get Dons are a bigger club and thankful for Stephen's work, but potential cup double. And obviously, a couple of people smell the gloves, one saying, will he last longer than Jim and Goodwin? But the timing is quite interesting because, as you say, Burnsy, I mean, I think he's done a remarkable job at St Mirren. Absolutely fantastic. But if he was to leave now and St Mirren maybe even get relegated, it kind of ruins his legacy a little bit, doesn't it? Or does it?
I don't think St Mirren will get relegated. You know what I mean, I know they're in a bit of trouble, but they've still got a quality of players to get themselves out of trouble. I mean, at worst, they'll finish second bottom. I don't even think they'll finish second bottom. But if they're going to that playoff, they have too much quality to go down. So I don't think St Mirren should really have many concerns on that front. And I don't think Stephen Robinson's legacy is actually would be tarnished in any way. I mean, what more can he do at St Mirren? You know what I mean? And it's one of these ones where he had to take the Aberdeen job now. It was now or never, because Aberdeen weren't waiting until the end of the season for Hornland, or they weren't waiting for Sandro Swartz. So they weren't going to wait for Stephen Robinson. It's a here and now. He had to take it if he wanted to take that step up to a club with a bit with bigger budgets and resources.
I know, I'm sorry, Kyle, because obviously Kyle's St Mirren daft, but that's the fact of the matter here. If you're the St Mirren manager and Aberdeen come calling, you get up that road as quick as your car can carry, don't you? It's as simple as that. You don't mess about with it. It's a massive opportunity. It will be a far bigger budget. It's a far bigger club, and you know, you timing in life sometimes isn't perfect. But this was an opportunity that Stephen Robinson simply had to take. There's no two ways about it. And by the way, I think there is an element of Aberdeen, and I know that Burnsy will say they're safest houses, they're in no danger. They are in danger because their form is absolutely horrendous. And once the league splits into two and they're in that bottom six up against teams that are all fighting for their lives for points, Aberdeen should be safe. But they're not automatic. It's not certain. So I think that they had to act now just to make sure, try and get a bit of stability, trying to end the season at least strongly, and then give the new manager the summer to put his kind of longer term plans in place.
Keith, I was saying that I thought St Mirren would be safe. I didn't say that Aberdeen would definitely be safe. I was just saying that I thought St Mirren would be safe. There's still an element of risk for Aberdeen. They need to get a couple of wins, and I'm not quite convinced this squad's strong enough.
So you think?
But I don't think it's strong enough you could guarantee them. I mean, you couldn't trust them to go and win a run of games. So I think they should do enough to stay up, but it'll be a challenge.
So what you're saying is, Burnsy, that Stephen Robinson has left a club that wasn't going to go down to join a club that might?
No, what I'm saying is that, what I'm saying is Stephen Robinson has joined Aberdeen, and I said, but they're not at the mire yet. They still need a result or two. You know what I mean?
No, you're right. You're right.
Good try.
Just before, very last thing, Burnsy. So your understanding is that it's a done deal? He will be the next Aberdeen manager?
It's a done deal, and I would expect it to be announced tonight, and I wouldn't be surprised if the official press conference is tomorrow.
Have you heard any whispers about who might be going in at Paisley?
No, I mean, I know under the previous regime that Stevie Naismith had a lot of admirers. Obviously, that's changed now. And then Keith Lasley's now in charge of making the calls. So, but Naismith was one that the previous board had looked at in terms of looking at succession plans to Stephen Robinson. So I don't know if he'd still be in the list. But apart from that, no, I think well, I've not heard any clear front runners as yet. Still very early doors, isn't it? The official permission was only given this morning.
It is, mate. If St Mirren don't know yet, then we can't blame you for not knowing either, Burnsy.
Who would you go for?
Who would you go for, Keith?
Who would I go for? I'd phone Askew and see if he'd take it. We're just going ask Askew forever right now.
I mean, it depends as well. Another good one would be Robbie Nielsen. If they could get Robbie back from Belgium.
I heard that name today, Burnsy, and that makes a bit of sense.
Aye. Or maybe even somebody like Charlie Adam as well, ex-St Mirren player. Now back at Burnley, so he's looking to get married in the managerial hot seat. So I don't think there'll be any shortage of takers there.
Yeah.
Aye. Well, listen, Burnsy, we massively appreciate you coming on. We'll let you get back to your game. Hopefully it's a cracker for you.
Here's hoping. All the best. Thanks, lads.
Cheers, Burnsy.
Take care. Ta-ra.
See you, Burnsy.
The one and only Scott Burns there. Always love him coming in. What do you think Robinson will be a success, Keith, at Aberdeen?
I hope so, because I'm an admirer of his work. I think that he's been, punching so far above his weight at St Mirren, and the track record is there, the CV is there. This isn't just, it's not been flash in the pan stuff. He's built St Mirren, and as Burnsy says, he's building, and what he's built at St Mirren has been built despite the fact that every summer he loses 4 or 5 and has to find, bring in another 5 or 6.
Yeah.
It's
Has to rebuild every season, basically.
Constantly spinning plates. It would be really interesting to see now when he gets a chance to have a sort of a longer term view on squad building and what he can put together at Pittodrie. But I'm afraid for him at the same time, because when a club makes an appointment that the fans didn't want, and we've seen this on our own doorstep down in Glasgow this season, when somebody is appointed and it's against the kind of general will of the support, he needs to do really well, really quickly to start winning over hearts and minds. And
Just ask Russell Martin.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I think Stephen Robinson's going to find himself in that sort of position at Aberdeen. I think he'll have the rest of the season. I don't think anybody will blame him, unless, of course, Aberdeen were to all of a sudden get sucked through a vortex into the relegation issue.
Keith, I was really surprised by Burns'. Let me get the table up again. I was really surprised by Burns' just dismissal. St Mirren won't get relegated. Now, look, I think Rob's done a remarkable job. They're only 3 points above Kelly, who have shown life under Neil McCann. I don't think that's far from cut and dry at all. I think they could easily. I mean, one defeat next week, they could be, joint on points for them.
I think, and it's a real worry now for St Mirren. But then you do look at that run of form there. Yeah. 4 defeats and a draw in the last 5 games. They have been in a tailspin. I know they've got injuries. I think the loss of the manager at this point in the season could be really problematic. And of course, they go into the game now at the weekend. This is, what's been a difficult couple of weeks for Rangers. I think today is a bit of good news for them and for Danny Rowe. St Mirren away is traditionally, or has become under Stephen Robinson, a really difficult game to negotiate. I think that St Mirren, the tailspin that they're in terms of recent form and results, and now the fact that they've lost a manager, I think if Danny Rowe could have handpicked a time to go to St Mirren away, it'd be this weekend. And Rangers are in desperate need of some sort of bounce, some sort of jab of adrenaline or momentum into their arm, and they've got a better than reasonable chance of that. Now, when you look at the other fixtures, I know that Kilmarnock are at home at Hearts. You wouldn't expect Kilmarnock to take anything out of that, but then that is a notoriously difficult venue for Hearts as well. Do you know what's really fascinating is I think there could be as many twists and turns at the bottom of the table between now and the end of the campaign as there could be at the top end, which gives us a really interesting league. And as somebody who's never really loved the idea of the split, this is almost like the perfect split, the perfect storm and the perfect split. Because you've got, games that matter all over the place every weekend between now and the end of the season.
We before we wrap up, let's go for one more little trip to the comments. This one, John says Rangers don't perform well against weakened teams, obviously referring to their game at the weekend and last weekend. Mark is asking us why we're dismissing John McGlynn, the most consistent manager.
That's a very good point. It's a very good point. Sorry, Mark.
I think he could be manager of the year this year, McGlynn, as well.
I think the problem with John is because I think he's looked at, and I think it's really unfair. I think he's looked at as not a fashionable option, if you know what I mean, which is ridiculous. If you look at the way that his team has been performing, not just this season in the top flight, but this has been the acid test for them, because they've come up through the divisions playing this football. John McGlynn has been, for all that he might be, he might have a few years in the tank and under the belt. He's progressive. His football is progressive. It's modern. It's contemporary stuff that Falkirk play. I think that he should be in the conversation for any job right now that was going. So again, might St Mirren make a move for John McGlynn? They could do a lot worse.
Would he go from Falkirk to St Mirren though? Don't know.
I think well, it depends. It would depend on a couple of things. It would depend on whether or not you felt the facilities and everything else around the job we're going to be good. If you got the same level of autonomy as John McGlynn enjoys at Falkirk, would that be there? If so, what's the wages like? The budget is probably going to be a bit bigger at St Mirren than it is at Falkirk, you would think. I don't know. I put it this way, I don't think John McGlynn can sit at Falkirk, even though what he's doing is absolutely magnificent. He's not going to be sitting there and wait for, I don't know, a Premier League job down south. It's not going to happen. So, at this point, if a St Mirren came along and said, do you know what, John, we'll double your wages, that would be really difficult for the guy to turn down, wouldn't it?
Aye, that's fair.
And if he got all the terms and conditions and guarantees around that he'd be allowed to do at St Mirren what he's been allowed to do at Falkirk, I don't know. No. I certainly, look, what I've always said on these matters, ask the question. That's why I was bemused about, the no link between Aberdeen and Askew. Well, Burnsy just put us right on that. The question was asked quietly behind the scenes, and the answer come back was, please leave me alone and ditch my number.
All they can do is say no. Last couple of comments. Let me have a look. Chris is one of a few people saying Neil Lennon for St Mirren. Blue Nose John echoes that, saying Neil Lennon would be a good shout. Do you not think Neil Lennon, Keith, I was watching them beat Aberdeen at the weekend in Fairland. Do you not think Neil Lennon is, all due respect to Dunfermline, worthy of a job further up the pyramid in Dunfermline?
Yeah, and I've always said, but again, Neil is one of these guys. I don't know reputationally if people have a problem or an issue. There's obviously a bit of baggage in terms of stuff that's going on previously. I don't know. Is he a better manager than Championship level in Scotland? Yeah, I'm absolutely convinced he is. And he's proved. But by the way, somebody was pointing out to me there, who was the last manager to win a trophy with Dunfermline, Hibs, and Celtic?
Jockstein.
So that would be some footsteps to follow in managerially if he could do that. Neil Lennon has proven at Hibs and at Celtic, of course, that he's very capable in terms of his skill set as a manager. I was always surprised, and I think he was surprised, that when he went to England, he went in at the level he went in at. I think that he felt at that time, as did I, that he had achieved enough in the game at Celtic to warrant better than having to wait around for an eternity for Bolton to turn up.
Yeah.
So I think once you've been through an experience like that, it probably teaches you that you might expect that you're going to have people knocking your door down, and it doesn't happen. And sometimes it can lead to frustrating long spells out of the game. But look, that resulting performance and everything that Neil Lennon is putting together at Dunfermline adds more weight to the argument that, maybe clubs should be looking at him.
John McCauley says St Mirren, not talking to Wilfred Nancy, the man's a born winner and a tactical genius. And I'm a great guy, says Danny.
Who was that once, Wilfred Nancy at St Mirren?
John McCauley.
Is John a Rangers fan?
I don't know. He put that comment in there twice, so I thought I better read it out. But aye,
he probably wants the appointment made in time for this week.
Good point. Aye, I'm a great guy. Says Danny Rowe should show some ambition and go for the St Mirren job. And Kyle's been back in touch. He says he knows that Charlie Adam is in for it. So quite interesting. Maybe watch this space. I
think he'll be one of a few. I don't think St Mirren they'll have they'll have quite a list of names in front of them already, because why wouldn't they? It's Stephen Robinson has made them perennial Premiership top six finishers. They've won trophies. It's a job that I think a lot of people would prize, and I think there will be a list of names now that St Mirren will be working through. But given that the position that they're in is so precarious, I don't know how much time they can take with this one. I think we're going to have to sift through the names quickly and reach a conclusion pretty quickly because they don't have time to mess about.
Absolutely. But I think that brings us to the end of Wednesday night's Hotline Live, brought to you by NordVPN. Thanks again for the comments. Massively appreciate it as always. And we'll be back to do it one more time this week, tomorrow night at 6 p.m. I say one more time, we will be here on Sunday as well, so that doesn't quite make sense. But we will be back tomorrow at 6.
Well, Sunday's next week.
What?
Yeah.
Sunday? Isn't it this week? Monday to Friday. I know the Reach... The Reach, this is a little insight for everyone. The Reach rotas run Saturday to Sunday.
Well, I'm institutionalised, Dan. It's like the old boy in what's the Shawshank Redemption. Remember the old boy?
Red.
Thing was here.
Brooks
was here. Yeah, that's me. I've got to that stage now.
Well, either way,
the world's moving too fast.
Either way, we'll be here tomorrow night at 6 and we'll be back on Sunday as well. So we hope you can join us then. Keith, good luck in the workshop, the prison workshop tonight.
Yep, no problem. I'm just digging through the wall. I'm ready to go and have a swim in some dodgy waters.
Excellent, nice one. And we hope you can join us tomorrow. Thanks for watching.